wanted to talk a little bit today about the concept of red light foods. And this is related to this week's blog post about foods that you should give up if you're trying to lose weight. And one of the topics that I discuss in that post is, or one of the categories is, foods that you have a hard time controlling your portions with. So if you are just tuning in, my name is Esther Avant. I'm a personal trainer and nutrition coach, and I work primarily with women to help them lose weight, become healthier, happier, and more confident by making small and sustainable changes to their day-to-day lives. So, like I said, on my blog this week, which I will link to this video in case you haven't read it, I'm talking about foods that may be hindering your weight loss. And this is not to go down the road of very restrictive diets or eliminating entire food groups really arbitrarily or following these really nonsensical rules about not eating certain things after a certain time or only eating certain things on certain days, or just these really kind of confusing food rules. But the point of the post was to look at foods that might be actually genuinely inhibiting your progress. And one of the two categories that I talk about are foods that you just cannot control yourself around. So I wanted to introduce you to the concept of green, yellow, and red light foods to kind of expand on that blog post. So obviously you probably noted that those colors correspond to a stoplight. I guess yellow could be orange, I don't know. But in any case, you have your green light foods. And those are foods that you don't have any really weird relationship with, you don't have self-control or portion-related issues. These are often your lean proteins and your veggies. So if really most people do not have like a binge eating issue with kale or anything like that. Kale chips may be a different story, but for the most part, people don't binge eat or really get fat on veggies. If you have an unopened or a half-eaten bag of baby carrots in your fridge and you're like, oh, those are still there, then you do not have a problem with carrots. So your green light foods are the ones that you can eat in normal portions pretty much all the time, and it's not problematic. There's no like slippery slope involved that you're like, if I have one carrot, I'm gonna eat all those carrots and then I'm done for. So that's your green categories, really just don't worry about those. What I want to get into is your yellow and your red. So yellow might be foods that at some times under certain circumstances or in certain situations you do have a little bit of an issue with. So for example, maybe when you go out to a Mexican restaurant, you're able to eat a few chips and salsa, a few chips with salsa while you're waiting for your meal, but then you don't really think about them beyond that. It's just, you had a few, you enjoyed them, that's it. But maybe when you're at home, if you have a bag of tortilla chips, you're just gonna eat the whole bag mindlessly in front of the TV. So that's a situation where, depending on the circumstances, a food could be either a yellow or a red. So that's something to be mindful of. And then what I really want to talk about today is the red category. So that would be foods that for some reason you have a challenging relationship with, you have a hard time eating appropriate portions, and it can just lead down a really slippery slope. So kind of the most obvious thing is the chips I just mentioned earlier. If you have them in your house, you're just gonna eat all of them, the end. But one thing that sometimes people overlook is, I guess you could kind of call it a gateway food, where maybe you can eat the chips, but once you've done that, it kind of snowballs, and then you have like this guilt of like, oh, I had the chips, and like now I might as well eat the cookies, and now I'm gonna have the ice cream, and it just leads you down this bad road. So if you can identify the trigger of that, then maybe that's a food that is not working for you right now. So to use myself as an example, there is, at the moment, one food that I just will not buy for this exact reason, and it's like crack in a bag. It's the, I think they're Snyder's pretzels, but they're the bits, like if you took a big one of those big pretzels and you like stepped on the bag and it turned into like little pieces, and then they dip them in honey mustard. I like almost can't even talk about them, they're so good. So I love them, and I do not eat them now because I don't want a serving of them. I want the entire bag, and just getting a taste of them makes it worse for me. I would rather just try to forget that they exist than to get a taste and then, this is like spoken like a true addict, I know. But I would rather not even get involved. I don't even want to remember what they taste like, because I know once I do, it's gonna be all I can think about. I'm gonna not only eat that entire bag that I just bought, but now every time I go to the store and see them, I'm gonna want them. And it's gonna be a big thing. So for me, a food that I've eliminated is those cracked pretzels, because it's just not worth it to me to have that like internal struggle where I have a little bit and now I have to reel it in. I just don't want to do that. So the concept that I want you to think about is, what foods might you have that kind of relationship with? And you might not have any. Some people just don't. Some people have healthy relationships with pretty much all foods, and you know, this isn't even a consideration, but odds are if you're trying to lose weight or change your body composition, you may have gotten yourself in this position due to unhealthy relationships with certain foods. So I want you to think today about what, if any, red light foods you might have, and if you want to consider eliminating those for the time being. And when I say eliminate, I don't mean like you are signing a blood oath saying, I am never going to eat cracked pretzels again. I'm just saying you kind of become more aware and you say, okay, I can keep trying what I've been doing and keep trying to eat these things in moderation, or you know, that sort of thing. Or I can accept that right now it's just better for me to not, to just kind of be done with the whole thing so that I can stop playing that game. So again, your relationship with foods can change, and just because you've decided that a certain food is not helping you right now doesn't mean that you're never going to eat it again. You could, you know, temporarily eliminate it, see how you're feeling, see if you even miss it, because you might not. And then you could experiment with, you know, am I willing to let it back in my life? And if so, what can I do to make sure that I don't just get triggered and go right back down the same road? So if that's portioning out the foods, putting them in a hard to reach place, that sort of thing. But think today about what your red light foods might be and what you want to do about them. And if you have any questions about this, I would love to, ladies only, have you join my Facebook group, Live Diet Free, and we can have a whole conversation about red light foods in there if you'd like. And I'd be willing to bet that a red light food for you is likely one for other people as well. They do tend to fall in certain categories. Like I said, most people aren't saying like, I have to quit the kale because I cannot contain myself. So most of it's going to fall into that like fat carb, you know, combo sort of category. So if you have any other questions about this, feel free to comment on the video below and I can get back to you. And I'll link to the blog post that I mentioned, as well as to the Live Diet Free group if you're interested in joining that as well. Hope that you guys are having a great day, and I'll talk to you later.